The deep space vessel Horizon's Edge had been traveling through the outer rim of the Andromeda sector for 18 long months. The crew of 62 men and women had seen many strange things during their mission. They had mapped dead planets, studied dying stars, and collected samples from asteroids older than Earth itself. But nothing had prepared them for what they would find on that cold Tuesday morning. Captain Daniel Carter was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm sounded. He rushed to the bridge, where his communications officer was already pulling up the signal on the main screen. "It's a distress call, sir," she said. "Unknown origin. The language is not in our database." Daniel studied the signal pattern. It was weak and fading fast. Someone out there was dying, and they were calling for help. "Set a course," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The Horizon's Edge was not a warship. It was an exploration vessel built for science and discovery. But Daniel Carter had not become a captain by ignoring people in need. His crew did not question the order. They simply got to work. 2 hours later, they found the source of the signal. It was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. The craft was shaped like a teardrop, with smooth silver walls that seemed to glow with their own inner light. But the glow was fading. Large holes had been torn through the hull, and debris floated in the darkness around it. "Life signs?" Daniel asked. Dr. Nathan Cole, the ship's chief medical officer, checked his scanner. Nathan was a thin man with tired eyes and steady hands. He had been a surgeon on Earth before joining the space program, and he had seen his share of death. But his voice still carried hope when he spoke. "3 life signs, Captain. Very weak. One is almost gone." Daniel made the decision quickly. "Prepare a boarding team." "Nathan, you're with me?" They crossed the gap between ships in a small shuttle. The alien vessel's airlock was damaged, but they managed to force it open. Inside, the air was thin and cold. Emergency lights flickered red along the corridors. They found the first body in what looked like a control room. The alien was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin was pale violet, and its eyes, now closed forever, were large and silver. Dark blue blood had pooled beneath it, already turning cold. The second body was nearby, slumped against a wall. This one had been shot multiple times. Whatever had happened here, it had been violent. Nathan checked his scanner again. "The third one is still alive." Down this corridor. They found her in a small chamber filled with soft cushions and glowing screens. She was female, or at least appeared female by human standards. Her skin was the same pale violet as the others, and her hair was long and white like fresh snow. She wore robes of deep blue fabric that were now stained with her own blood. Silver blood, not blue like the others. "She's different," Nathan observed. "Her blood is silver. The others had blue blood." Daniel knelt beside her. Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. They were beautiful eyes, filled with pain and fear, and something that might have been hope. She tried to speak, but no words came. Then her eyes closed again. "She's lost too much blood," Nathan said, his voice grim. "I can try to stabilize her, but without a transfusion, she won't make it. And we don't have any of her blood type. We don't even know what her blood type is." They carried her back to the Horizon's Edge. Nathan worked through the night, trying everything he knew to keep the alien woman alive. But her condition only worsened. Her silver blood was special somehow, carrying proteins and compounds that no human medicine could replicate. Without more of it, she would die before morning. Lieutenant Kevin Price watched from the doorway of the medical bay. Kevin was 26 years old, born and raised in a small town in Ohio. He had joined the space program to see the universe, to find something bigger than himself. Now he watched a princess from another world slowly fade away. He did not know she was a princess yet. That would come later. All he knew was that she was dying, and he could not stand by and do nothing. "Doc," he said, stepping forward. What about human blood? Nathan looked up, exhaustion written on his face. What? Human blood? Have you tested it? Maybe there's something compatible. Nathan shook his head. Kevin, the chances of compatibility between species separated by millions of light years are essentially zero. It would be like expecting a fish to breathe air. But have you tested it? Nathan paused. He had not tested it. It had seemed so impossible that he had not even considered it. But Kevin was right. They had tried everything else. Fine, Nathan said. Give me a sample of your blood. Kevin rolled up his sleeve without hesitation. Nathan drew the blood and ran it through the analyzer. The results came back in minutes, and Nathan's face went pale. That's not possible, he whispered. What is it? There's a partial compatibility marker. Your blood and hers share a protein structure that shouldn't exist in both species. It's not perfect, but it might work. Nathan looked at Kevin with serious eyes. I have to warn you, we don't know what this will do to her. We don't know what it will do to you. The risks are completely unknown. Kevin looked at the dying alien woman on the table. Her breathing was shallow. Her silver blood was failing. She had hours at most. Do it, he said. Nathan set up the transfusion. Kevin lay down on the bed beside the alien princess and watched his own red blood flow through the tube and into her arm. He gave nearly 2 pints before Nathan stopped him, worried that Kevin himself might be in danger. Then they waited. The night passed slowly. Kevin drifted in and out of sleep, weak from the blood loss. Nathan monitored both patients constantly, watching for any sign of rejection or failure. But the alien woman did not die. Her vital signs stabilized. Her breathing grew stronger. Color returned to her violet skin. The silver blood in her veins began to flow with new strength. Mixed now with the red blood of a human from Ohio. By morning, she was still unconscious. But she was alive. Daniel Carter stood beside Kevin's bed and looked down at his young officer with pride. You took a hell of a risk. Lieutenant, he said. Kevin smiled weakly. Someone had to, sir. Neither of them knew yet what that risk would mean. Neither of them could have guessed how that simple act of kindness would change the fate of 2 civilizations. But as the sun rose on a distant star, a princess from another world slept peacefully, human blood running through her alien veins, carrying within it the strength of a species that had survived against all odds. The universe would never be the same. 3 days passed aboard the Horizon's Edge. The alien woman slept through all of them, her body fighting to survive, to adapt, to become something new. Kevin Price had recovered from his blood donation and spent most of his time sitting outside the medical bay, waiting for news. He did not know why he felt so connected to this stranger from another world. Perhaps it was because part of him now flowed through her veins. On the morning of the 4th day, she opened her eyes. Nathan Cole was checking her vital signs when it happened. Her silver eyes focused on his face, and for a moment, there was fear in them. Then she spoke, and to everyone's amazement, she spoke in English. Where am I? Nathan nearly dropped his scanner. You can speak our language? I learned it from your computers while I slept, she said. Her voice was soft and musical, like water flowing over stones. My people can absorb information during rest. Your language is simple, but beautiful. Captain Daniel Carter was called immediately. He entered the medical bay and stood at the foot of her bed, studying her with careful eyes. She studied him back, and something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. 2 leaders meeting for the first time. I am Captain Daniel Carter of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge, he said. We found your ship and brought you aboard. You were dying. I should be dead, she replied. She looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers as if seeing them for the first time. But I feel stronger than I have ever felt. What did you do to me? Nathan stepped forward. You had lost too much blood. We had no choice but to try a transfusion using human blood. Against all odds, it worked. The alien woman was silent for a long moment. Then she pushed herself up from the bed and stood. She should have been weak. She should have needed days more rest. Instead, she stood tall and strong, her silver eyes wide with wonder. This is not possible, she whispered. She walked to the wall of the medical bay, where a metal rail was attached for patients to hold. She gripped the rail with one hand and pulled. The metal bent like soft clay in her grip. She stared at her hand in disbelief. What have you done to me? Nathan ran more tests that day. What he found changed everything they thought they knew about biology, about evolution, about the connection between worlds separated by impossible distances. Human blood contained something special. Nathan called it an adaptive protein complex, but that was just a scientific name for something almost magical. This protein carried within it the genetic memory of millions of years of human evolution. Every plague that had killed millions, every ice age that had frozen the world, every predator that had hunted humanity's ancestors in the dark. Humans had survived all of it, and that survival was written in their blood. The alien woman species, who called themselves the Valkyrie, had evolved on a paradise world. They had never faced true hardship. Their planet had no predators, no plagues, no ice ages. They had become intelligent and cultured and technologically advanced, but their bodies were fragile. Their immune systems were weak. Their healing was slow. Human blood had awakened something in her. Dormant genes that her species had evolved away from millions of years ago were now active again. The human proteins had given her body a template for strength, for healing, for survival. She was no longer fully Valkyrie. She was something new, something stronger. My name is Zilara, she told them that evening as they gathered in the captain's quarters. I am princess of the Valkyrie Empire, seventh in line for the Crystal Throne. Daniel absorbed this information calmly. Why were you attacked, princess? Her silver eyes grew dark with pain. My empire is dying, Captain. A civil war has been burning for 3 years. A faction called the Pale Court believes our people have grown weak and corrupt. They want to purge the old bloodlines and start fresh. They have been hunting my family one by one. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was heavy with grief. The 2 who died with me were my guards. They gave their lives to protect me, and they almost failed. Kevin Price spoke for the first time. Why do they want you dead? You're 7th in line. That's not exactly close to the throne. Zilara looked at him, and something softened in her eyes. You are the one who gave me his blood. Kevin nodded. I am. Then I owe you my life, Kevin Price. She said his name carefully, as if tasting each syllable. To answer your question, the Pale Court does not care about order of succession. They want every member of my bloodline dead. Every cousin, every nephew, every distant relative. They believe our blood is corrupt. They call us weak. She laughed bitterly. And they were right. We were weak. But now, because of your blood, I am strong in ways my people have never been. I healed a wound in minutes that should have taken weeks. I bent metal with my bare hands. I can breathe your air without difficulty, when normally I would need supplements. Daniel leaned forward. Princess, you said your people have been watching humanity. What did you mean? Zilara looked uncomfortable. The Valkyrie have observed your species for several hundred of your years. We have technology that allows us to watch from great distances without being detected. And what did you think of us? She was silent for a moment. We thought you were primitive, violent, dangerous. You fight wars over resources you could share. You destroy your own planet while dreaming of others. You kill each other for reasons that make no sense to us. She paused. We decided you were not ready for contact. Many of my people believed you never would be." The words hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Daniel's crew shifted uneasily. They had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not, and they also knew that other species had been judging them, finding them lacking. But Zelara was not finished. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "We were all wrong. You found my ship and could have ignored it. Instead, you risked yourselves to save me. You gave me your own blood to keep me alive. You asked nothing in return." She looked at Kevin with something like reverence. "Your species may be violent, but you are also kind. You are survivors. And that survival, that strength, flows through me now." She stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. The Pale Court believes strength comes from purity, from isolation, from cutting away anything different or weak. She turned back to face them. But true strength comes from connection, from helping those in need, from giving parts of yourself to others. Daniel rose and stood beside her. "What will you do now, Princess?" "I must return to my people," she said. "I must show them what human blood has done to me. I must prove that the Pale Court is wrong about everything." She looked at Daniel with determination burning in her silver eyes. "Will you help me, Captain Carter?" Daniel did not hesitate. "We will." And with those two words, humanity took its first step onto the galactic stage. They did not know yet what enemies they would face or what sacrifices they would make. But they knew they were no longer alone, and they knew they had found an ally worth fighting for. The stars waited, cold and patient, for what would come next. The Horizon's Edge traveled through deep space for 7 days, heading toward neutral territory, where Princess Zelara hoped to find allies. The crew had grown used to their alien passenger. She spent her days learning about human culture, reading their books, watching their films, asking endless questions about Earth and its history. In return, she taught them about the Valkyrie, their ancient empire, their beautiful homeworld, their centuries of peace before the Civil War shattered everything. Kevin Price found himself spending more time with her than anyone else. There was a connection between them that neither fully understood. His blood ran through her veins. Part of him had become part of her. They talked for hours about their different worlds, their hopes, their fears. A friendship was forming, perhaps something more, but peace never lasts forever. On the 8th day, the alarms began to scream. Lieutenant Commander Amy Scott was the first to see them on her tactical display. Amy was a small woman with short, dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had served in 3 different conflicts before joining the exploration program, and she knew the look of enemy ships when she saw them. 3 vessels dropping out of fold space, she announced, her voice tight with controlled fear. Valkyrie design. Big ones. Zelara rushed to the bridge, and her face went pale when she saw the ships on screen. They were massive, each one at least 5 times the size of the Horizon's Edge. Their hulls were black as midnight, decorated with silver symbols that seemed to glow with cold light. "The Pale Court," she whispered. "They found me." Captain Daniel Carter stood at the center of his bridge, watching the enemy ships approach. His mind was already racing through options, calculating odds, searching for any path to survival. The numbers were not good. A transmission came through. The face that appeared on screen was Valkyrie, but twisted somehow. His violet skin was almost white, bleached pale by some unknown process. His eyes were not silver, but pure black, like holes into darkness. "I am Commander Thelzin of the Pale Court," he said. His voice was smooth and cold, like ice sliding over stone. "You have something that belongs to us. The traitor Princess Zelara. Surrender her, and you may leave in peace. Refuse, and you will be destroyed." Daniel looked at the enemy commander for a long moment. Then he looked at Zilara, who stood beside him with fear and defiance mixing in her silver eyes. She did not ask him to protect her. She did not beg. She simply waited for his decision. "I am Captain Daniel Carter of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge," he replied. "And I don't abandon people who need help. Your request is denied." Thousand's black eyes narrowed. "You do not understand what you are doing, human. You are interfering in sovereign Valkyrie affairs. Your primitive species has no place in our war." "Maybe not," Daniel said. "But we're here anyway. So you can either let us go, or you can find out just how primitive we really are." The transmission ended. A moment later, the pale court ships began to move, spreading out to surround the human vessel. Amy Scott studied her tactical display with intense focus. "Captain, they're faster than us. They have stronger shields, and their weapons are more powerful. In a straight fight, we don't stand a chance." "Then we don't fight straight," Daniel replied. "What do we have that they don't expect?" Amy thought for a moment. Then a small smile crossed her face. "They don't know how humans fight. They've been watching us from a distance, but they've never actually faced us in battle. They think we're primitive and predictable. So we be unpredictable." "Exactly." Amy turned to face the crew. "I need everyone at their stations. And someone get me the mining charges from Cargo Bay 3. The next hour was controlled chaos. Amy explained her plan to the crew, and they worked frantically to prepare. The mining charges were small explosives meant for breaking apart asteroids. They had no guidance systems, no targeting computers. They were dumb weapons, useless in a normal space battle. But Amy Scott did not fight normal battles. The Pale Court attacked with confidence. Their ships moved in perfect formation, firing weapons that should have torn the human vessel apart. But the Horizon's Edge was not where they expected it to be. Daniel ordered maneuvers that no Valkyrie captain would ever attempt. Sharp turns that stressed the hull. Acceleration that pushed the crew to their limits. Flying patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully calculated chaos. "They're confused," Amy reported with satisfaction. "Their targeting systems can't predict our movements." "Good. Bring us around behind the lead ship." The Horizon's Edge dove through a gap between two enemy vessels, so close that their shields nearly touched. The Pale Court ships tried to turn, but they were too large, too slow, too bound by their predictable tactics. Amy launched the mining charges. The explosives flew through space in a scattered pattern, looking like nothing more than debris. The Valkyrie defense systems ignored them. They were not weapons, after all. They were just rocks. Until they hit the engine ports of the lead ship. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The Pale Court vessel's engines erupted in flames, sending the massive ship spinning out of control. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as systems failed one after another. "Direct hit," Amy announced. "That ship is dead in space." But they were not finished. Daniel pushed the Horizon's Edge even harder, flying straight toward the second enemy ship. At the last possible moment, he pulled up, and Amy released another wave of mining charges. These ones were set to explode on impact with shields. The Valkyrie shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They had no defense against solid objects detonating against their surface. The explosions overloaded the shield generators, and for just a moment, the ship was vulnerable. Amy fired every weapon the Horizon's Edge had. Lasers meant for cutting asteroids. Emergency flares meant for signaling. Even the ship's waste ejection system superheated to dangerous temperatures. The second Pale Court ship took heavy damage to its weapon systems and began to retreat. Only one enemy remained, and Commander Thelzan was no longer confident. His black eyes were wide with shock as he watched the primitive human vessel tear through his fleet. Daniel turned the Horizon's Edge toward an asteroid field nearby. Time to disappear. The ship dove into the maze of tumbling rocks, weaving between asteroids with skill that seemed impossible. The remaining Pale Court vessel tried to follow, but it was too large, too clumsy. Within minutes, the humans were gone, hidden among a million rocks. On the bridge of his damaged ship, Commander Thelzin stood in silence. His hands trembled with a mixture of rage and something he had never felt before. Fear. These humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They fought in ways that made no sense, ways that should not work, ways that broke every rule of civilized warfare. And they had won. Thelzin opened a channel to the Pale Court headquarters. "This is Commander Thelzin," he said, his voice shaking. "The princess has escaped. And we have a new enemy." Far away, hidden in an asteroid field, the crew of the Horizon's Edge celebrated their impossible victory. They had faced superior enemies and survived. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Princess Zelara stood beside Kevin Price, watching the celebration with wonder in her silver eyes. "Your people are remarkable," she said softly. Kevin smiled. "We're survivors. It's what we do." She took his hand in hers, a gesture that meant more in her culture than he knew. "Then let us survive together." The war was far from over, but humanity had announced its presence to the universe, and nothing would ever be the same. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days, everyone knew about the battle. They knew that a small human exploration vessel had faced 3 Pale Court warships and survived. They knew that Princess Zelara lived, protected by strange aliens from a distant world called Earth. And they knew, though they could hardly believe it, that human blood had given the princess powers beyond anything the Volcari had ever seen. The Galactic Assembly was a council of 17 different species who maintained peace among the stars. They had known about humanity for years, but had decided, like the Valkyrie, that these violent primitives were not ready for contact. Now they had no choice but to pay attention. Commander Thelzin stood before the assembly, demanding justice. "Humans have interfered in sovereign Valkyrie affairs," he declared. "They have attacked our vessels without provocation. They have corrupted a member of the royal bloodline with their primitive biology. They must be punished." The assembly listened. Many members nodded in agreement. Humanity was unknown, unpredictable, dangerous. Perhaps it was best to contain them before they became a real threat. But then Princess Zelara requested permission to speak. She walked into the center of the great chamber, where representatives of 17 species watched her with curious eyes. She was dressed in simple white robes, and she stood alone, without guards or protection. She looked small and fragile in that vast space. Then she drew a knife and cut her own arm. The assembly gasped. Some members rose from their seats, but Zelara held up her hand for silence, and they watched in stunned amazement as the wound healed before their eyes. Silver and red blood mixed together, flowing for just a moment before the skin closed, leaving no mark at all. "This is what human blood has done to me," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "I am stronger than any Valkyrie in history. I can heal wounds that would kill others. I can breathe air that would poison my people. I can survive conditions that would destroy any of you." She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of every representative in the room. "The humans did not attack us. They saved me. They gave their own blood to keep me alive when they could have let me die. They asked nothing in return except the chance to help someone in need." She pointed at Thelzin, who stood frozen with rage on the other side of the chamber. "The Pale Court calls humans primitive. They call them violent and dangerous. But who is truly violent here? The Pale Court has murdered thousands of their own people. They have burned cities and destroyed families. They want to wipe out entire bloodlines because they believe purity is strength." Her voice rose with passion. "They are wrong. Purity is weakness. Isolation is death. The humans survived on their world because they adapted. They changed. They mixed with other groups, other cultures, other ideas. Their blood carries the strength of millions of years of survival against impossible odds. And now that strength flows through me. She walked toward the center of the chamber, where a metal pillar supported the great dome above. She placed her hands on the pillar and pulled. The metal groaned and bent, twisted by strength no Valkyrie should possess. The assembly watched in silence. No one could deny what they were seeing. The princes had become something new, something powerful, something that defied everything they thought they knew about biology and evolution. Humanity is not our enemy, Zilara declared. They are our salvation. And anyone who stands against them stands against the future itself. The assembly voted. The decision was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would not be punished. The Pale Court's demands were rejected. And for the first time in history, Earth was officially recognized as a member of the galactic community. Far away, aboard the horizon's edge, Captain Daniel Carter received the news with quiet satisfaction. But there was no time to celebrate. They had won a political victory, but the war was far from over. New messages arrived every day from Valkyrie across the Empire. They were the desperate ones, the dying ones, the hopeful ones. They had heard about human blood and its miraculous effects. They wanted to be transformed like the princess. They wanted to be strong. Dr. Nathan Cole worked around the clock, studying the blood samples, trying to understand exactly how the transformation worked. It was not simple. Not every Valkyrie could receive human blood. Some were compatible, others were not. And those who were compatible still faced risks. The transformation was painful and dangerous. Some did not survive, but those who did survive became something remarkable. Nathan discovered that human blood did not just strengthen the Valkyrie. It carried within it the genetic memory of everything humanity had survived. Every disease that had swept across Earth. Every predator that had hunted in the darkness. Every ice age and every drought and every disaster. Human ancestors had faced all of it and survived. And that survival was encoded in every drop of blood. The Valkyrie had never faced such challenges. Their world had been kind to them, too kind. They had evolved in comfort and safety, and their bodies had become weak because strength was never needed. Human blood gave them what their own evolution had failed to provide. It awakened dormant genes and activated forgotten survival mechanisms. It made them stronger, faster, harder to kill. Kevin Price became a symbol throughout the galaxy. He was the first donor, the one who had given his blood to save a princess. Valkyrie, who opposed the Pale Court, saw him as a hero. The Pale Court itself declared him an enemy of the Empire, a criminal whose blood was a corruption that had to be destroyed. Kevin took it all with humble grace. "I just did what anyone would do," he told a reporter from a neutral species. Someone was dying. I could help. So I helped. The reporter asked him if he was afraid of the Pale Court. Kevin thought about it for a moment. "Sure," he admitted. "But fear is just part of being human. We feel it, and then we do the right thing anyway. That's what makes us who we are." Captain Carter received new orders from Earth Command. The governments of Earth had been watching events with growing interest. They understood that humanity had stumbled into something enormous, something that could change their place in the universe forever. The orders were simple. Escort Princess Zilara home. Help her end the Civil War. And show the galaxy that humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. Daniel gathered his crew on the bridge and told them the news. They were no longer just explorers. They were ambassadors, warriors, representatives of everything Earth could be. "I won't lie to you," he said. "This mission is dangerous. The Pale Court will throw everything they have at us. Some of us might not come back." He paused, looking at each face in turn. "But if we succeed, we will change history. We will prove that humanity belongs out here. We will save an empire and gain an ally. And we will show every species in this galaxy that humans protect those who need protection." He straightened his shoulders. "Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship can do so without shame. This is not what you signed up for." No one moved. Not a single crew member. Amy Scott spoke for all of them. "We're with you, Captain. All the way." Daniel allowed himself a small smile. "Then let's go save an empire." The horizon's edge turned toward the Valkyrie homeworld. Behind them, more ships began to gather. Valkyrie vessels crewed by those who had received human blood transfusions. Merchant ships from neutral species who believed in the princess's cause. Even a few military vessels from Earth sent to support the mission. It was a small fleet, but it was growing. And at its heart was a single human ship, crewed by 62 men and women who had no idea they would become legends. The final battle was coming. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Pale Court prepared to destroy everything that stood in their way. The blood of Earth had started a revolution. Now that revolution would have to be won. The journey to the Valkyrie homeworld took 3 weeks. During that time, the fleet grew larger every day. Ships emerged from hiding places across the empire, crewed by Valkyrie, who had lost hope until they heard about the princess and her human allies. Some had already received blood transfusions from volunteer human donors. Others came seeking that transformation, willing to risk death for the chance to become strong enough to fight back. Princess Zalara spent her days meeting with captains and commanders, planning strategies, building the alliance that would challenge the Pale Court's grip on power. But she spent her nights with Kevin Price, talking quietly in the observation deck, watching the stars drift by outside. Their bond had grown deeper with each passing day. It was not just the blood they shared, though that connection was powerful. It was something more human than that. Something the Valkyrie had a word for: soul recognition. Two beings who belonged together, regardless of the species that divided them. 3 assassination attempts came during those 3 weeks. The Pale Court had agents everywhere, fanatics willing to die to kill the princess. The first attack came in the form of a poisoned meal. Kevin noticed the strange smell and knocked the plate from Zalara's hands before she could take a bite. The second was an explosive device hidden in a gift from a supposedly friendly captain. Amy Scott's security protocols caught it before it could detonate. The third was the most dangerous, a Valkyrie warrior who had hidden among the loyalist crews, waiting for his moment. He nearly succeeded. His blade came within inches of Zalara's heart before Kevin tackled him to the ground. Kevin took a wound in that fight, a deep cut across his chest. But he recovered quickly, and when he did, he found Zalara waiting by his bedside with tears in her silver eyes. "You keep saving me," she whispered. "Guess that's my job now," he replied with a weak smile. She took his hand and held it tight. "When this is over, Kevin Price, I'm going to marry you. I do not care what my people say. I do not care about protocols or traditions or bloodlines. You are mine, and I am yours." Kevin squeezed her hand back. "Is that a proposal?" "It is a promise." The fleet reached the Valkyrie homeworld on the 23rd day. What they found there stole the breath from everyone who saw it. The Pale Court had launched their final offensive. Hundreds of black ships surrounded the planet, raining fire down on the cities below. The capital was burning. The royal palace was under siege. The last defenders of the old empire were making their final stand, and they were losing. All ships. Captain Daniel Carter announced over the fleet-wide channel, "Prepare for battle. Today we end this war." The battle that followed was the largest in Valkyrie history. The Loyalist fleet, strengthened by human tactics and human blood, crashed into the pale court formation like a hammer striking glass. Ships exploded in flowers of fire. Weapons blazed across the darkness. Thousands died in the first minutes alone. But the Loyalists were different now. The Valkyrie, who had received human blood, fought with ferocity their ancestors would not have recognized. They healed from wounds that should have been fatal. They pushed through pain that would have stopped their unchanged brothers. They were no longer the fragile, elegant beings they had once been. They were survivors. Amy Scott coordinated the battle from the bridge of the horizon's edge, her tactical genius spreading through the fleet like wildfire. Human strategies that seemed like madness proved devastatingly effective. The Pale Court's perfect formations crumbled under attacks that came from unexpected angles, at unexpected times, in unexpected ways. But victory was not certain. The Pale Court had numbers on their side, and they fought with the desperation of those who knew they were fighting for their very existence. Admiral Velteron was the greatest military mind the Loyalists had. He commanded from his flagship at the center of the formation, directing the battle with brilliant precision. But his ship took a direct hit to the bridge, and when the dust cleared, the Admiral was dying. Dr. Nathan Cole examined him via remote connection. He's lost too much blood. Without a transfusion, he'll be dead within the hour. Then give him a transfusion, Zalara demanded. We're out of compatible donors. Everyone who could give has already given. Their bodies need time to recover. Kevin stepped forward. I can give. Nathan shook his head. Kevin, you've already donated 3 times in the past month. Your body is at its limit. If you give more blood now, you could die. Kevin looked at the tactical display, where the battle raged on. The Loyalist forces were holding, but barely. Without Admiral Velteron's guidance, they would fall apart. The Pale Court would win. Everything they had fought for would be lost. Do it anyway, Kevin said. Kevin, Doc, if we lose this battle, we all die anyway. At least this way, there's a chance. Nathan looked at Daniel Carter, who stood silent with pain in his eyes. The captain did not want to give the order, but he knew Kevin was right. Do it, Daniel said quietly, and pray it's enough. Kevin lay down on a medical bed in the middle of the bridge, where everyone could see him. The crew watched in silence as Nathan connected the tubes. As Kevin's precious red blood began to flow out of his body and into a container that would be transported to the Admiral's ship, Kevin gave more than he should have. Far more than was safe. His face went pale. His hands began to shake. His eyes fluttered closed. That's enough, Nathan said, reaching for the tubes. No, Kevin whispered. Just a little more. He gave until he had nothing left to give. Then his eyes closed, and his heart began to fail. Zalara screamed. She pushed through the crew and fell to her knees beside him, taking his cold hand in hers. No, you cannot die. I will not allow it. She looked at Nathan with desperate eyes. Save him. I don't know how. He's lost too much blood. We don't have any human blood to give him back. Then give him mine. The words hung in the air. No one had ever tried such a thing. Valkyrie blood in a human body. It was unknown. It was dangerous. It might kill him faster, but Zalara's blood was no longer purely Valkyrie. It was transformed, mixed with the human blood Kevin had given her weeks ago. It was something new. Do it, she commanded. Now, Nathan hesitated only a moment. Then he connected the tubes, and silver blood began to flow from the princess into the dying human. Kevin's body convulsed. His back arched off the table. His eyes snapped open, and they were no longer simply brown. Flecks of silver swirled in his irises, like stars being born. His heart began to beat again. His color returned. His wounds began to heal before their eyes. When it was over, Kevin Price sat up and looked at his own hands with wonder. He could feel the change inside him. Human and Velkari mixed together, creating something that had never existed before. "How do you feel?" Zellara asked, tears streaming down her violet cheeks. Kevin smiled. "Stronger." Meanwhile, Admiral Veltaran had received Kevin's blood and returned to command. With renewed strength and clarity, he directed the final push against the Pale Court. The Loyalist fleet broke through the enemy lines and reached the planet's surface. Ground forces landed at the capital and fought their way to the royal palace. Commander Thelzen died in that final battle, killed by a Velkari warrior whose blood ran red and silver. The Pale Court's leadership crumbled. Their forces surrendered or fled into the darkness between stars. The war was over. 3 days later, Princess Zellara stood before the United Velkari Council in the Great Hall of the restored palace. Behind her stood Captain Daniel Carter, Dr. Nathan Cole, Lieutenant Commander Amy Scott, and Kevin Price, the human who had given everything to save an alien world. "This war began because of fear," Zellara said to the assembled council. "Fear of weakness, fear of change, fear of others who were different from us. The Pale Court believed that purity was strength, that isolation would save us, that we should destroy anything that threatened our perfect image of ourselves." She paused, letting her words sink in. They were wrong. Our salvation came from those we dismissed as primitive. Our strength came from those we called weak. Humanity gave us their blood, their strategies, their courage. They asked nothing in return except friendship. She turned and looked at Kevin, love shining in her silver eyes. They taught us that true strength is not about purity. It is about connection, about giving parts of ourselves to others, about standing together against the darkness. She faced the council again. "I declare today the beginning of a new era. The Velkari Empire will stand as allies and friends of Earth. We will share our knowledge. We will learn from each other. We will grow together." She raised her voice, letting it ring through the great hall. "They gave us their blood when we were dying. They fought for us when we could not fight for ourselves. They are not beneath us. They are beside us. And together, we will be unstoppable." The council rose as one, their voices joining in approval. The new alliance was born. Later that evening, Kevin and Zellara stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital city. The fires had been put out. The rebuilding had begun. Stars filled the sky above them, countless points of light representing countless possibilities. Zellara leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Now we build something new." Kevin looked at his hand, where silver still swirled beneath the skin. He was no longer fully human. She was no longer fully Velkari. They were something new, something that bridged two worlds.